This was a great panel to answer a lot of questions and to give a good perspective of how far Star Atlas has come from its very beginning and how strong it is right now. Good morning, Metaverse. I'm Thor with the Red Hand, and today we're going to explore the Impact Summit that Star Atlas put on, and specifically the panel between Star Atlas CEO Michael Wagner and Chris, the team's economist. Now, we're going to cover several of the topics that they went over, and that's going to include things such as the economy and how far the economy has actually expanded, the role that Chris and the economy team and the economics team play in game design. They also touched on sustainability, which is a very big point in Web3 and importance to the longevity of the project. So we'll cover that. Next, we'll talk about Chris's #1 priority for the game economy and releases of new economic features. Also, they talk about Star Atlas versus other Web3 games and what sets them apart. And there were some very good points in there. Star Atlas and its overall GDP to date, that was some good information. They also took the time to talk about the downsides. So this wasn't just one big fluff piece. There was actual good information brought up here. Also, justifying the value of assets, such as ships. That's always a question that people have. How do you justify the prices and the values that you've set to these assets compared to something from Web 2 or any other Web 3 game? So answering those will be really important. Also, specialization and its importance with the game economy and the development of the ecosystem. And lastly, the GDP predictions. That will be both Chris's take on GDP predictions as well as some of my thoughts to end things off. So if that sounds interesting to you, stay tuned and let's get started. Now, the first topic that was brought up was in regards to the economy as a whole. What makes Star Atlas's economy different than or special in comparison to other economies? And so Chris went and talked about how, opposed to Web 2 games, Star Atlas and being in Web 3 and crypto, there was no, or there is no redo button. There's no way to shut the economy down and restart it from a different point to fix a problem that comes about. So they have to deal with each and every problem that comes up in the economy, and it's a naturally evolving thing. And so they take a look at the dozens of commodities that are represented in the ecosystem as SFTs and are slow and cautious about each of the moves that they make in order to rebalance and or refocus the economy. And so it was made very clear that Chris has a very real respect for the finality of all the actions and as a whole finality of the ecosystem going forward. To be cautious and data driven is personally exactly what I want to see from the people that are starting and designing an ecosystem and an economy. Now, the different phases of the economy, the transitions, were described as the Golden Carnival, and this was where you crafted raffle tickets, these golden tickets, and then you would burn those tickets for a random chance at prizes. Now, this was, I was a bit risk averse and I didn't participate in it a whole lot myself, just a few times for the experience, but overall, I think it was a pretty successful activity. And so that was a very fast burn. You could do as many of those as you wanted. And then it was transitioned into RFRs. And RFRs would now give you a fixed amount of Atlas, okay? A fixed amount of Atlas, but an unlimited supply. So you can make as many RFRs as you wanted, and you knew precisely how much Atlas you would get each time, and so that brought some certainty to that. But it left it open for unlimited inflation of Atlas. And so then from that point, it was evolved and transitioned into the Sage, Star-based, and Sage as we play it now. That's the economic game as we play it. And so now there is a fixed amount of Atlas that is distributed every day to however many players craft and or send in their resources for LP, loyalty points, and then receive part of that pool. So it now is a fixed amount of Atlas emission from a day-to-day basis. And so bringing more certainty to that. And from each transition, Chris explained that the economic team, which quick shout out to Dan and Gareth for their exceptional skills, and the praise that they got from Chris was quite high. And I think if I can give a friendly shout out to them and appreciation for all the work that they've put into it, to be able to take all that data they get from each of the transitions from one economy to the next, and then to be able to analyze it real time and really turn that around and make reports for the community is quite fantastic. If anybody's interested in the economic reports, there are regular economic reports, state of the economy reports that are put out by the team. Very helpful to keep everybody up to date. But the point is, they were able to gather a lot of really good information to then use that and improve each iteration of the economy and know where they need to go from here. Now, there was a point that I starred specifically, and that was when Chris began speaking about what they prioritize when they are creating a new economic feature and or transitioning into a different type of economy. And that was a focus on consumption before production. And this is where I think a lot of projects that have failed ended up getting it wrong. And so I think that PhD is really coming in handy to be able to pick out the truly important piece of the economy. And so focusing on consumption, what do we need to consume to do this action? And how does that affect the economy? And once you've discovered that and answered those questions, then you move on to what does that consumption produce? And so putting the cart before the horse in its proper place, that was great to hear from them, and I'm glad that they have their eye on the prize in that regards. Because if you can get a solid hold on what you need to consume in order to produce something, that ultimately ends up creating a more stable economy, more stable prices for all of the different commodities that go into that process. From the ground up, and stability then branches out and makes the Star Atlas economy something much more understandable, and for those who are more risk averse, much more willing to take a look at it and take a shot. Another good point that was brought up right after that was the crafting fees and how they function with funding the DAO. There's a portion of market fees, crafting fees that go to the DAO. About 2% for market fees, 2% of the transaction goes in fees to the DAO, and then there is a 7% crafting fee that also goes to the DAO. And the whole purpose for these crafting and market fees is to give Atlas more utility and give you a consistent reason for wanting to acquire it so that you can use it, the consumption, to then produce more. And the side effect of that is that the DAO is now essentially fully funded, self-funding, which is a huge piece of that sustainability that is going to give Star Atlas the ability to proceed in perpetuity, and to help grow the health of the economy is going to then grow the health of the DAO, and then the actions of the DAO can in turn help grow the economy even more. Things like the Navathon, and the funding that the DAO was able to put towards that, and you can see in the Impact Summit, the very end of the Impact Summit was all of the prize winners for that, and that was value add projects to Star Atlas. And there's some really good ones in there that I think is going to improve the game and bring a lot more quality of life to actual gameplay. And that's exactly what we were hoping to see, and I hope that we'll be able to do that in the future. And with a fully funded DAO, transaction fees bringing in transaction fees for both market and crafting fees being the major one, bringing in some serious income for the DAO to work with. Next, they talked about Star Atlas versus other Web3 games, what makes them different. And really that was kind of pointing right back to everything we just talked about, is the economic team that Star Atlas put the priority towards building the economy team with formal economic training, and a smooth and with an effective pipeline to be able to in real time analyze all this information that's coming into them. Here's where I'd like to give a big shout out and a thank you for all your hard work to the analyst Garth, as well as the data engineer Daniel. You guys have done a lot of work, a lot of great work, hard work, to be able to pull all that information together, and providing the state of the economy reports on a regular basis that really helps the community stay up to date and understand what's happening, and better analyze it ourselves as well. So a big thank you to you guys, and keep up the great work. But that is one of the big things that separates Star Atlas from other Web3 projects. Most other projects just do not have that focus and or the highly trained expert individuals to do the job. Because as Chris stated, there is no magic formula for these digital economies, and you really have to have top tier skill to be able to properly analyze it and work with it, do something meaningful. Star Atlas GDP. It looks like we're around 15 million in GDP to date, and that's fantastic considering there is about 1,200 daily active users. The amount of economic drive that Star Atlas has is quite impressive. But even though it's very impressive, they did talk about some of the downsides that they face, some of the troubles that they have working with a real economy in Web3, and that's where Chris reiterated, the difficulty of working without a reset button, with on-chain data. That is makes all the decisions final, and that can be difficult to work with sometimes. And so knowing that we have a team that's working on it and being careful and data driven is huge. Also, the volatility that we see in Web3, and the token prices going up and down so significantly in this space, that is very tightly correlated to the amount of daily active users. So if the market is doing well, then the game is going to be doing well, as it's shown to have done in the past several years. So that gives a lot of challenge, especially in a bear market. So if you perceive the market and the movements that we see right now as signs of potentially breaking out into a bull market or a further bull run, then the activity in Star Atlas I would expect to go up as well. If you perceive everything as pointing towards going into a bear market, well, then the ecosystem is going to have struggle as a result. So that is something to work with, but I think they've actually done a pretty good job working in tough conditions through the last bear market. And I personally feel confident with their ability to adjust and work on the fly, especially thinking about the economic team that they have still together. Now, here's an interesting piece. Justify the value of Star Atlas assets. That's always a tough question. The Star Atlas assets, the ships, for example, they will sell, anywhere from a few dollars to $100, $1,000, $10,000, $100,000, $1 million. How do you justify the value in those assets? What Chris and Michael both brought up and went back and forth about was because the Star Atlas assets are on chain and the ecosystem is built specifically so that you can resell your asset. You can buy the asset, use it to build resources, which then has value to it, so it's cash flowing, and then you can put it back on the market and somebody will buy it in a robust market that they've that the community has been able to bring together, both primary and secondary markets to be able to resell this stuff. And even if you end up selling the asset for less than what you originally purchased it, the entire time that you held it, it's been cash flowing and bringing you return. So there's a great value to that. Now the justifying the specific value of each of those assets really goes to where do you think the project's going in the future. If you think our Star Atlas is going to blow up and be a really big thing in Web3 and in the world, if you think the users are going to skyrocket from here, then it's actually very reasonable to see the value, the very high value in these assets in comparison to the visually comparable Web 2 games. Chris used the example of thinking of Star Atlas ships more like a piece of heavy equipment, like a Caterpillar excavator, where you're using it to do a job, and you're getting cash flow from it. It's creating stuff versus a piece of art, something like a Bored Ape Yacht Club is, I think, the example he gave, where it's just a piece of art and its value is derived from other people believe its value. It's not actually creating anything. But the Star Atlas assets have the ability to create, and then you can resell it. And then a conceptual side of things is, each of these performing assets that has the ability to cash flow turns every user into an entrepreneur, into someone who's operating their own business. And that's a big deal. I take a lot of gravity to the concept of being your own entrepreneur, being your own business owner. Some people that have worked for somebody else their entire life, and they've never branched out, never taken that step, to be able to do that in the environment of a game, and a cool space themed game, and then realize, oh, I'm my own boss. I'm running an operation here, and it's real. It has actual cash flows. Atlas converted to Solana or USDC or something like that. It has the ability to be real world cash flowing. So that's huge to me. That's near and dear to my heart. Which then ties into specialization And this is a concept that they talked about extensively. Specialization, you see pictures of a bunch of different types of ships, different game loops and activities that need to be done for the economy to function, and the importance of making it so that not everybody can do everything. You're going to need to trade with each other, and that brings in that secondary market. The way that the economy and the game is designed is that you will not be able to do all the different things that are needed to advance in the game to really be successful. You're going to have to engage with other players. You're going to have to be able to interact, to trade and specialize in different parts. Now, for me, I've brought it up many times, the Red Hand, we are going to be specialized in rescue, repair, and refueling. And using our R6s and our R8s, and using those specialized ships to do that job better than anybody else, to then provide that service to other players, get them back on their feet from being knocked out from a space battle, right? Repair them and get them back in the game so they can do more things and stretch the boundaries of space. And by specializing in that little piece, you can catapult other people forward. And now they would go out and mine resources and be able to bring that back, so that we as the Red Hand would be able to craft those into the toolkits and the items that are the core of what we do. And that interaction is extremely important. So all the different parts of Star Atlas really do focus on this specialization. And so when you're thinking about the gameplay that you're going to, your strategy that you're going to implement to get an edge on the game, think about the value of specializing, finding that niche that nobody else has figured out quite yet. And to be able to get to that point and be the best that you can, the best person out there doing that specific thing. And in this system focused on specialization, that is a recipe for success. So that was a very key piece of information, not exactly alpha, but concept, a core concept of Star Atlas that should help you theory craft, plan, and strategize what you're actually going to be doing as the game develops, and more pieces are iterated and added to the ecosystem. Now, talking about adding things to the ecosystem, the upcoming pieces, you have, the upcoming additions to Star Atlas in gameplay. For example, racing and tournament racing. The ability to win prize money from specializing as a racer. This was really cool because Sage really does favor the people with large fleets, with a lot of ships to be able to move resources from place to place. Economy of scale is a very real thing. But if you are a prize racer, all you need is to have an extra small ship that goes super fast and have the skill to then fly that ship and beat everybody else, a skill-based aspect of it, and then be able to win prize money from it, and to be productive and cash flow from that niche and gameplay. So that was really interesting that they brought that up specifically, and that ties into the DAO being able to be fully funded. The DAO would be able to sponsor its own tournaments and offer its own prizes to then encourage more people to get involved and fill that racing niche. There's also the third-person shooter game and tournaments and esports that can be brought into the ecosystem and really expand from that direction. So that was a piece not spoken about a whole lot, but you can extrapolate the possibilities and the emphasis that they have in the development of that direction. That was really good to be able to listen to. And then the last thing was GDP predictions. And so the way Chris laid it out was right now the current GDP is about 15 million, and that's with 1,200 daily active users. So if in the next year Star Atlas is able to expand their daily active users to 12,000 daily active users, which is not a huge game. It's a healthy game, but it's not massive. So I think that's actually a reasonable possibility. That would mean that the GDP is at 150 million if it scales out equally, and that is on the same scale as small countries, and that's massive. That's very impressive. And so, if that is the point that they brought up, and the last piece was the GDP predictions. Chris brought up the example, and he didn't give a specific prediction on it, but he did talk about it and give you an idea of where his mind is at, or where what he thinks is possible. And he talked about, currently you have 1,200 daily active users, and you've got a GDP of 15 million. So if you were to increase your daily active users to 12,000, you're talking close to 150 million, which is very substantial. And scaling out from there, you're turning into a very serious world economy. And to think about it from that perspective. So I think that would be a really great goal for the community, to build the daily active users, and to articulate what Star Atlas is, and to advocate it out to the rest of the world, to encourage people to come in and use and to interact in this ecosystem. I've had some very good. I've recently had some very good conversations with people I hadn't had contact with for months or even years, from other projects that I had been a part of that basically flopped, and then be able to talk about where Star Atlas is currently compared to those other projects, and got a very warm reception to that, and a lot of interest in what exactly is going on with Star Atlas. And so I think from an economic perspective, this was a great panel to answer a lot of questions, and to give a good perspective of how far Star Atlas has come from its very beginning, and how strong it is right now. Well, that's it for the summary. It was a very long summary, but I also had a lot of thoughts to it. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it was useful to you. Don't worry about liking or subscribing or any of that junk, but if you think you know someone that would find it useful, someone in an ecosystem that is fed up with an unsustainable economy, share it with them. Show them what Star Atlas has been able to accomplish, and if you can do that, then today was a good day. Good morning, Metaverse.